So I started to look at what are the sectors in Haiti where I could put my time, my money, and my energy that can have multiple effect all at once. So in 2008, I took a trip back there. So I look at what we have and what are the challenges, what resources that we have locally, and how I can use those resources to actually solve those local problems. And energy was a no-brainer, because, Haiti has one of the highest rate of the kilowatt hour in the Caribbean. I think we're at 46 cents a kilowatt hour. The grid, it's only 20% of the people who are actually connected to the grid. The electricity is unreliable. Everybody has a diesel generator. 95% of the country relied on charcoal made of wood to cook, okay? So I said, okay, well, this is an opportunity here. What can we do in that sector? So I start looking at what we are using. I said, okay, well, maybe there's an easy way that we can create a product where that we can improve efficiency on the actual simple device that people are using to cook their food on a daily basis. And we can perhaps look at waste as a way to create energy and things like that. So I said, okay, let me just test my hypothesis. So I did a small pilot, it went well. So I said, okay, now we need to do something. So I went to all my savings, put my loan, my graduate student loan on deferment, build a factory to do a cook stove project in Haiti, an efficient cook stove project. So we get the factory to be built in 2009. So we had our first 15 staff being trained in December 15. So I left December 22nd, 2009 to go back to the US, spend the holiday. The plan was to come back at the end of January 2010 to really launch the project. We all know what happened in January 12, 2010. So the factory was destroyed, so I pretty much lost all my investment. And at that point, I was ready to kind of give up on that dream and just go back and find a job in the US and continue to live. But when I went back in March, because the earthquake happened in January, so I couldn't get back until March, every single day we had 3 staff that came to the site where the factory was, because that was doing their first formal job. And they came every single day, and I was really, it was absurd to me. And I asked one, why do you come every single day to the site? This is well, we have nothing else to do. So staying at home and coming here give us a semblance of normalcy. So at that point, we knew that we had to do whatever that we can to continue. So we decided that we would just find an open space and we get a few tents and we start doing the process, making the stove by hands. And that's how we get started. So that was in 2012. At that point, we learned about, at this time, I was just really looking for all kind of funding possible that I could find. Now, the next thing that I'm going to tell you will put into perspective why a fund like Compete Caribbean is a need for the region. After the earthquake, everybody knows that there was a lot of money flowing to Haiti, promised, either delivered that, it's a whole different discussion. But when we are trying to build that, I said, okay, well, we have this great business plan, so we can actually create a stove that people can buy, that will solve not only energy issues, but health and economic development. We thought that it should be easy for us to raise the funding that we need to rebuild the factory. Boy, did we get that wrong. So we could not find anyone who wanted to fund us, despite that we had a very solid kind of business plan to do that. And the reason for that, it was, okay, you are not an NGO, because I purposely decided that I wanted to do a social business. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to show a different example of what can work. So we were saying, okay, well, we cannot touch that money because that's for NGO. So the bank, when we would go to the bank, the interest rate at the bank were too high for a business like us. So then we said, okay, well, where do we need to find money? So we went to the impact investor, which was at that point a very nascent kind of industry. And none of the impact investors wanted to invest in Haiti because in their mind, there's too much money already going to Haiti. So we were kind of left with nothing, So thank God, like, Compete Caribbean at that time get started, and we apply. And we make a good case, they choose us. And I can tell you, as a result, today, that very kind of like, in a sense that, innovative, but at that time, I never see what we were doing as innovative at all. I thought like that was a very simple kind of like, problem solving, exercise. We see a problem, we come up with a solution, and that's how it should be. So as a result of being accepted and getting the help with Compete Caribbean, that helped us to really build the business, to rebuild the factory, because we use part of that funding to rebuild the factory, to get the technical assistance that we need to actually grow the business, and to be able to actually access new capital. And I think that's one important thing I want to perhaps highlight as one of the perhaps greatest benefit. It's, to us, for our business, it's not necessarily the money itself, but the kind of cloud that give us as a small company out of Haiti to be able to go to investors all over the world and say, this is what we are doing. We have the backing of an institution like the IDB, like Compete Caribbean, that have invested, that give us that sense of, okay, well, if they invested, there's something good or there's something good about what we are doing. So that really allow us to grow the business. Today we have employ over 300 people, 51 people directly, and around 250 indirectly to our distribution mechanism. Our production is close to our maximum right now, so we're producing about 2,500 stoves per month, and we are selling about the same amount. And now, really, what came out of this, because I never set myself, or I never think of myself as someone who's creating innovation. So through that process, and we are starting dealing with issues, and I think that's what happened also. When you face with a challenge, and you have a desire to succeed, you find ways. And I think that's perhaps one way innovation happens. I always say innovation can happen in two different ways. Either you are an environment where it's nurtured, where people encourage it, there's support for it, or you are in a place where there's no support whatsoever, but you need to find your way out. And in our case, that's what happened. When we start selling stoves, our stoves are extremely efficient. They are using 50% less fuel compared to the traditional stove, and the output is higher. So, so you cook more food with less fuel. And we said to ourselves, why people are not running to our factory? Why aren't we working overtime, 24 hours a day to make stove because it's so good? Because 93% of our customers, they are extremely satisfied with our product. And then that was a puzzling question for me. And I posed to my teams, we need to figure out exactly what's going on here, because we should be able to oversell and have backlog of orders months and months because the product is good. So what we learned is that despite that our product is good, but it's cost $10 on average, most people still find it difficult to find that $10 to purchase a stove all at once, because most people are living under the poverty line, making less than $2 or less per day. So that means they would have to save for 5 days to buy a cook stove. And then I posed the question to my team: how do you sell to someone who has no income? That's quite absurd, because you cannot sell with no income. It's just those, But we did find a way. And I think that's, for me, the main innovation aspect of what we are doing in Haiti is not necessarily the stove itself, but it's the mechanism that we are putting in place to actually facilitate access to our product, which is literally creating a mechanism to allow anyone who wants a stove right now in Haiti can have access to it, to a system that we put in place. And we work with IDB again to actually do that. And what we did a pilot. So we group the people, the consumers together. We assess what their demand for fuel is. We negotiate a discount on the fuel. And by doing so, we take that margin, and then we're creating saving accounts for the individual buyers. So each time somebody go and buy fuel, they are saving money, and this is the money now that we are using to actually give them stoves. So to me, this is the kind of like, approach and system I think that can work in the Caribbean, because we face different challenges, but I think like, when you have mechanism or you have fund like Complete Caribbean that can allow you to really experiment with those ideas, I think like, we can see great advancement in the Caribbean region.